The slave market on Vireth was nothing like the sanitized auctions humans like to imagine in history books. Here, the air stank of sweat, blood, and ozone from the stun lances. Iron bars were too crude for alien species. Instead, force field cages crackled faintly as frightened captives huddled inside, each marked with glowing collars that tracked movement and suppressed abilities. Jalen stood at the back of the crowd, hands deep in his jacket pockets, trying to keep his expression blank. He wasn't here to buy anyone. He told himself that twice. The auction was just a place to get information. Hear the whispers, trade credits for intel, maybe spot the person who'd stolen his ship parts. Nothing more. The auctioneer's voice cut through the din, rough and nasal. Lot 32. Dangerous. Untamed. No refunds. 2 guards dragged the next captive onto the stage. She wasn't limping, but the stiffness in her gait told Jalen she was hurt. Her wrists were bound in metal cuffs thick enough to restrain a tank hatch. Her head stayed low, messy black hair falling over her face. But the moment she looked up, he understood why no one had bid yet. Her eyes, silver, bright as molten steel, flashed with feral hate that made the closest bidder actually take a step back. The auctioneer's tone became theatrical. From the Arixa wastes, last of her tribe, they say she killed 3 fully armed patrols before capture. This is a fighter, folks, strong, agile, good for pit matches or dangerous labor. The girl growled, not a metaphorical growl, an actual low rumble that raised a hair on Jalen's arms. The guards yanked her chain to keep her still, and she twisted so sharply that one of them nearly lost his balance. The crowd murmured. The auctioneer shrugged, trying to mask his own unease. Opening bid, 200 credits. Silence. Even the usual scum, pit masters, warlords, mercenary recruiters, shifted their weight and glanced away. Dangerous slaves cost more to contain than they were worth. Jalen's jaw tightened. This wasn't intel. This wasn't even his problem. But there was something in the way she kept scanning the crowd, not for pity, not for help, just calculating, like she was looking for the smallest gap, the weakest guard, the best chance to strike. The auctioneer sighed. 150, then 100. 50? No one? Very well, we'll... Jalen's hand went up. He hadn't planned it. He didn't even realize he'd done it until his arm was in the air and heads were turning. The auctioneer blinked. 50 credits bid from the human in the back. Jalen's heart was pounding, but his voice stayed level. 50. Going once. 75. Someone shouted, a pit boss with scars crisscrossing his neck. He had that hungry look of a man imagining profit. Jalen's hand didn't come down. 100. The pit boss scowled, countered with 120. But Jalen just said, 200. The murmurs swelled. That was twice the opening. The pit boss hesitated. Maybe he didn't like the risk. Maybe he didn't like being stared down by someone who wasn't looking to bluff. The auctioneer's grin widened. 200 from a human, going once, twice. Sold. The sound of the gavel echoed. Jalen still hadn't lowered his hand. They processed a transfer in a side tent where the smell was worse. A clerk slid a datapad toward him. The legal fiction of ownership glowing in blue script. Sign here. She's yours now. No guarantees. Jalen signed. Try not to look at the girl kneeling in the corner, still cuffed. Her gaze was fixed on him, unblinking, like she was deciding whether to kill him the second the chance came. When the clerk left, they were alone except for a single guard leaning against the doorframe. Jalen crouched in front of her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Nothing." "Fine. You don't have to talk. But I'm not taking you to a pit fight. Or a mine. We're leaving Vireth." Her silver eyes narrowed. A quiet, skeptical hum came from her throat. It wasn't agreement, but it wasn't a snarl either. He tapped control on her collar, inputting the release code the clerk had given him. The lock clicked open. The moment it fell away, she lunged, not at him, but at the guard. The man never saw it coming. She slammed into him, knocking him out cold in 2 heartbeats. Jalen exhaled. "Okay, that's one way to say thanks." She stood over the unconscious guard, chest rising and falling fast. Then, slowly, she looked back at him. "Why?" It was the first word she'd spoken, voice rough from disuse. Because nobody else would, Jalen said simply. They slipped out through the service corridors, avoiding main gates. The docking bay was close, too close to turn back. But just as his ship came into view, a shout rang out behind them. The pit boss, with friends. You think you can just walk out human? His men fanned out, weapons ready. Jalen stepped in front of the girl, drawing his sidearm. He didn't point it, yet, but his stance was clear. You're making a mistake, the pit boss said. That one's not a pet. She's a storm wrapped in skin. She'll gut you before you. A blur of movement cut him off. The girl darted past Jalen, faster than his eyes could track, and in seconds the pit boss was on the ground, wheezing, weapon kicked away. His men froze, unwilling to fire without hitting their boss. She stood over him, breathing hard, her silver eyes lit with something like pride. No one owns me, she said. Jalen gestured to the ship. Then let's make sure no one ever tries again. They didn't speak much until they were in orbit, the planet shrinking behind them. Only then did she turn from a viewport. My name is Sarah, she said. Jalen, he replied. She tilted her head, studying him like he was another puzzle to solve. You paid for me. Yeah. You could have left me there. I could have, Jalen admitted, but I didn't. Her lips twitched, almost a smile. Then I will stay, until I repay the debt. Jalen shook his head. No debt. Just stay if you want to. She was silent for a long moment. Then she sat in the co-pilot's chair, silver eyes fixed ahead. I want to. And for the first time, Jalen realized his hand had gone up in that auction, not because he pitied her, but because somewhere deep down he already knew he'd never want to lower it.